Hey, Chris.
Yeah, Paul.
Hey, Lindy.
Hey, Paul.
I had a thought.
What was it?
Restaurant establishments, theaters, any kind of public place should start installing Faraday cages. And just so everybody knows, a Faraday cage is basically a metal shield around whatever room you happen to be in, so it blocks all electromagnetic interference coming into the room. And that interference could also be something like cell phone radiation. And so my reasoning for this is, I don't know if you've ever been at the theater or at a restaurant and someone decides to start talking on their phone or browsing Instagram or something like that. And I've noticed it mostly in the theater these days. I go to the movies about maybe once a week. And pretty much consistently now, there are people who will, in the middle of a slow part of the movie, pull out their phone and start browsing Instagram. And
what is Instagram?
I'll send you a link in the show
notes.
Is
that one of those things where you swipe, or is that different than that?
No, it's not a dating app. Although maybe it could be a dating app.
You
swipe up.
People use it for dating. They'll have people DM them instead of actually swiping on the dating app.
So it's kind of like making out in the movie theaters, what you're telling me?
I've reached peak aggravation with this shit because I'm so tired of having to psychologically deal with it. I know if I'm in a theater, it probably doesn't interrupt the movie that much, or if I'm at a restaurant, it's not interrupting me so much that it's ruining my experience, but it's really pissing me off. It's pissing me off that people think that using your phone in these places where you're not supposed to be using your phone is okay. And I've noticed that more and more there's this culture of people will sit down at a table, even if you're with some of your better friends, they'll have their phone on the table. And so I want to block any usage of cell phone inside an establishment where you're with other people. In your house, I don't care. You can do whatever you want.
Wait, so your thought is mandatory Faraday cages, or
no? I want to make it okay for movie theaters and restaurants, etc., to feel okay about installing these things.
Okay.
So a huge Faraday cage around the whole building, or the whole room?
Around the theater at least. So if you want to take a call, you can just step outside the theater and it will work.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be that expensive. I mean, theaters are very expensive to build. It would not be a huge thing. And it's not a complicated device. It's really just wire meshing or aluminum siding that you can put inside of the ceiling and the walls. And it will block it enough just to the point where you won't be able to get enough signal to get internet or to make a phone call or a text message.
So do you have anticipatory stress about going to a movie and the person's phone going off next to you? Okay.
I want to walk into a theater and not have to worry about having to tell people.
No, I know that, but do you currently physically stress out about the person's is this impacting your day-to-day life, or is this more wouldn't it be cool if I didn't have to worry about the
it doesn't. It's not stressful for me. I have a little bit of stress when I have to get up and go and tell them to turn their phone off. But other than that, which I do, I'm fearless now.
Oh, you're that asshole?
Yeah, I'm totally that guy. Turn off your phone. We're in a theater. But I don't walk in expecting to do that. I walk in hoping I don't have to do that.
Yeah, so I like your idea, not so much in public. So I understand movie theater in particular. That's actually a really good example of a good use. To me, I'd actually like to see it more as an art exhibit. What happens if you put a Faraday cage in some public mall or space and then just see what people did when they just couldn't get cell phone reception? So that would be my fun way of doing it, using it more as an art an active art exhibit. I think would be pretty cool.
For me, I think that would be, as a business, a really good selling and marketing point if they could do it. And I feel like there'd be places that are known for having their Faraday cage where you can go and you're not going to use your phone. And I think that's an awesome idea. I would love being able to go somewhere and know that a phone isn't going to come out from anyone at my table, from anyone around me. It would be a huge perk.
But on the other side, the flip side of that is a lot of people like to be plugged in at all times, or at least like the comfort of knowing they can be plugged in at all times. And so if there's a sign that says cell phones don't work here, those people might not want to go to that movie theater or that restaurant, and because they want they want to be able to use their cell phones. So I wonder what that number is, what that ratio is of people who, like you and like me, who would want to go in there and not have to worry about phones, versus the amount of people who would absolutely reject the idea and go someplace else.
Well, I vote we let the businesses take the risk and we allow them to do it, and then all the risk is on them to find out.
Well, I agree with you, except I wonder, so in the case of a theater, let's pretend that whatever theater installs a Faraday cage in secret, and they don't tell people that their cell phones don't work, they just won't work. And so people will just sort of write it off as, oh, well, I guess I don't have any signal because I'm in a theater. Kind of like when you get into an elevator, you don't really expect to have any signal. And so is that the best course of action for businesses to take so they can avoid any backlash against people saying, well, how dare you take away my right to use my phone wherever I want and go elsewhere? So I don't know. I mean,
let's think about the movie theater example. So I think doing it without telling people would be a huge violation of almost your rights. Like, I would be really upset if I walked in somewhere and found out that they had made it so my phone wouldn't work. But if I were buying tickets, let's say, and you know how you can go to a 3D version of a movie, you can go to, special audio version. Like, if they had it so that, our one theater room, this is the one where your cell phone won't work, and you can buy tickets specifically to go see Avengers Infinity War in the room with the no cell phones, then you can do that.
It actually looks like it is federally illegal to jam cell phone signals.
Yeah.
Wow.
It is.
Could you not even do it as art or even if you got informed consent from people, you might not be able to do it?
But building an elevator is jamming cell phone signals, because you're basically surrounded by a piece of metal. And so I guess it's the intention that matters, because you can unintentionally build a Faraday cage, and people do it all the time. I mean, you can walk into a very old house that uses stucco, and to put the stucco in, they put basically chicken wire in the wall. Mm-hmm. And that's why in a lot of old houses you get shitty cell phone reception.
Huh.
It does look like intent is part of it. So I'm just reading the FCC's guidelines. It looks like there has to be some intent involved. Otherwise, elevators would be illegal. I like the idea. I don't know if I pay a premium to go to the no cell phone version of a movie, but that would be the one you'd want to go to.
Yeah.
Just so even if the person next to me is talking Instagram, I don't want you yelling at him to turn off Instagram. That to me is the problem here. I think that stems from your veganism. So I know you keep telling me you're not one of these like militant vegans, but I'm pretty sure that it's the same psychological aspect.
Well, it's distracting to me. I mean, there was a point, I didn't do it, but so we were in a movie, and someone in the front, we were in the back, and someone in the front row pulled out their phone, and I could see that they were just kind of thumbing through Instagram or Twitter or whatever like that in the front row with their super bright screen on. And I almost yelled out
dark mode
to the cart. I know. Well, I mean, people normally will turn the brightness down, but still, I can still see it. It's this bright blue light. I almost yelled out across the entire theater, down in the front, turn your phone off. I didn't do it. I chickened out.
Linda, you used to run a vineyard. Would that have been a selling point for you? Like, potentially, I could see wine tasting being like, you want to almost deprive your other senses of.
So in our tasting room, we were really, really social, and you actually want people to feel completely comfortable to do whatever they want. So in that kind of setting, I would actually probably never want that. But And it's just like almost a restaurant. I feel like some restaurants would want it and some restaurants wouldn't. It would really depend on your vibe and what you were going through for and like what your feeling was.
Was Instagram part of like your strategy? Were you the opposite? Were you like actively saying, hey, please take pictures with your cell phone?
So you don't actively say it because then you come off as desperate, but you want people to.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So I can't, now I'm thinking about it, if Instagram or internet marketing is part of your relationship to your phone, is part of your marketing shtick, then you actually wouldn't want a Faraday cage. So movie theater becomes, to me, or theater in general, becomes like the only use case almost.
Well, I can imagine if I were a restaurant just starting and I wanted to get a bunch of media coverage, I'd want to be one of the first places to do it. Because then it's your shtick. It's like your whole thing and you get a bunch of coverage because of it. And people would almost like do it right outside and be like, I'm about to go into this restaurant and I'm not going to be able to use my phone. So I think you'd have to have it incorporated into your entire social media marketing plan.
What if you put a Faraday cage in the middle of a public park or a mall and just see what happened to people, right? So that would be a way to test it, because then if somebody sues you, or tries to, at least you could just say it was art. So you have a defense built in.
Even if it's not art, it would be some sort of study where because they actually sell these pieces of plastic that look and feel like a phone, but they're just pieces of plastic, to satiate apparently our growing need to know that for people who have to hold on to something that feels like a phone because it makes them uncomfortable to not do that.
Wow.
You can buy them on Amazon. They're like $15. So I don't know how pervasive that is, but the fact that those exist tells me that would be a very interesting study. If you somehow magically turned off the internet in a mall, or a cell phone reception in a mall, what would happen? What would you see? If you had your control on a regular Saturday where it just had regular internet, and somehow you're able to record everybody at a mall, and then the next Saturday you turn it off, are people like more agitated? Are they kicking more puppies? I would love to know.
So my original thought was like put it in a subsection of the mall and have people walk into it and be very confused. And I'd imagine you could almost clear out a section of the mall by just removing internet.
That would be so cool.
That would totally work.
Would there be fewer people in that area over the course of the mall?
I can imagine people just like backing up out of it, like holding their phones up and just getting tons of shots of people like backing out of that space suddenly, like being like, oh, where does my phone work?
Yeah. It's probably like a synchronized dance. You could line everybody up and have them all doing the phone up down motion that you can kind of visualize with your hand.
Yeah, it'd be sort of like when you put a drop of oil into colored water, and you can kind of watch how the color spreads out.
You guys do the weirdest fucking stuff in California. What are you talking about?
That's how we bathe, okay?
I think it would be good if there was a version of it where you had to disclose that it has the intent of being a Faraday cage, but even then it could be problematic, because then people could take advantage of the fact that they know somewhere is a Faraday cage and use that as kind of place to do something because they know it's not secure.
I wonder if you have to get insurance almost now. Do you think that would be a higher likelihood of a target for like terrorism or something? Like what would be the act that happens?
I mean, that's kind of what I was saying, but then again, if you think about it, the likelihood of actually experiencing terrorism is so low that the probability may be low, even if it increases the probability of it being a target.
No, so you're going to bring Bayes into this, aren't you? Bayes theory, for anyone playing at home, is when you update your probabilities. I'm going to get this wrong. You probably know it better than I do, Lindy.
I don't.
You have two prior percentages or understandings of how likely something is to happen, and then based on new information, you update those percentages. And things that are still very unlikely to happen are still very likely to happen, even in a realm where they're a little slightly more possible.
Yeah.
Is that my rough interpretation of it?
You guys are saying that my idea cannot be instituted in the United States of America.
But we can do it somewhere else. I'm sure we can find another country where it's legal.
I think I'm gonna go figure out how to become an artist and then go implement this at a mall and just see what happens too. I actually really like the concept, and I like my art. So I'm gonna do some art.
I fully support that.
Yeah.